In 2028, a zombie virus outbreak took the world by storm, but just as many netizens had predicted, carbon-based creatures stood no chance against the overwhelming power of advanced technology and modern weaponry. Before long, the military wiped out the zombie threat entirely. Humanity quickly rebuilt its home, but the remaining zombies soon caught the attention of capitalists. Seeking profit, they rounded up the zombies and confined them to an isolated island, turning it into the world's most renowned zombie resort. For the right price, visitors could experience the thrill of hunting zombies firsthand. Melanie lost her father in the zombie crisis 10 years ago and had been unable to move on from the pain. On the advice of her counselor, she decided to visit the zombie island, bringing her boyfriend Louis along. Little did they know, they would accidentally become entangled in a shocking conspiracy. That night, the resort's founder, Valerie, hosted a welcome party for the guests. As she delivered her speech, she failed to notice a zombie quietly approaching her from behind. Fortunately, the creature was bound tightly by chains. With a simple command from Valerie, the zombie shooting festivities officially began. Meanwhile, Sadie quietly slipped away from the crowd, making her way into the island's control room. To prevent another outbreak, the resort had been equipped with the most sophisticated security system in human history. If the situation ever spiraled out of control, the system would automatically trigger the Sulfur Protocol, erasing the entire island. Sadie seized her chance. While the guards were distracted, she plugged a USB into the main computer. It was clear she wasn't just here for a vacation. However, as she left the control room, she was accidentally spotted by Archer upstairs. The next morning, Melanie noticed that the zombie from the previous night was being taken away by staff. She felt that the zombie looked familiar, but she couldn't remember where she had seen it before. Soon, the guests gathered at the zombie hunting grounds under the guidance of their instructors. As the steel gates slowly opened, everyone eagerly anticipated the start of the hunt. Crossing a bridge, they were met with a chilling sight: hordes of zombies swarming across the land. Jack and Alfie immediately picked up their rifles and started shooting at the zombie horde, but they didn't hit a single one. Louis, a retired Special Forces soldier, steadied his aim and took precise shots, landing headshot after headshot. Jack and Alfie could only watch in stunned silence. Louis then handed the rifle to Melanie, but as she lined up her target, she hesitated, unable to pull the trigger. Melanie was instantly overcome with a chilling sense of dread, but in the next second, Archer raised his sniper rifle and took out the zombie with a single headshot. His marksmanship was on par with Louis's, making it clear that Archer's identity was anything but ordinary. As night fell, the guide led them to the campsite. Everyone was having a great time, except for Melanie, who was overcome with unease, sensing that something was deeply wrong with this place. Meanwhile, back in the control room, the engineers detected an anomaly in the system. After a thorough check, they discovered an unauthorized login from the night before. Just as Valerie was about to call security, the system suddenly crashed. In an instant, every restraint on the zombies was released. At that moment, the resort's guests remained unaware of the impending disaster. They gathered in front of the zombie enclosures, taunting the creatures until suddenly, the zombies were released from their restraints and lunged toward them. Fortunately, Mike reacted quickly, taking down the zombie with a single shot. The sudden turn of events left everyone in shock. Panicked, they scrambled into the vehicles, desperate to escape, but they had no idea that as the steel gates opened, every single imprisoned zombie had been unleashed. Inside the villa, chaos erupted as the zombie descended upon the guests. A massacre unfolded as terrified tourists ran for their lives. Within moments, they stormed the command center, overwhelming the security forces, who stood no chance and were wiped out in an instant. At that moment, the very same zombie from the other night reappeared before Valerie. Without hesitation, Valerie abandoned her staff and locked herself inside the safe room. Peering through the blinds, she saw the control room completely swarmed by zombies. To make matters worse, the system had detected a viral breach and had automatically activated the Sulfur Protocol, preparing to level the entire island with a nuclear strike. Meanwhile, Melanie and Sadie were chatting on the roof of a vehicle when they suddenly noticed zombies approaching in the distance. Melanie immediately shouted to wake the others. In the nick of time, Archer arrived and fired, taking down the advancing zombies. Just as they began to relax, Nevin swung the searchlight around only to reveal a massive horde of zombies surrounding them. Without hesitation, Archer opened fire. Seeing that Jack and Alfie were useless in a crisis, Nevins rushed into the car and called headquarters, only to learn the horrifying truth: the island had already triggered the Sulfur Protocol. He tried to start the car, but the engine refused to turn over. The zombies closed in, and within moments, Melanie was tackled to the ground. Thankfully, Sadie rushed over, shoving the zombie aside before calling for everyone to retreat onto the vehicle's roof. As Nevins got out of the car, he was attacked by a zombie, but Archer quickly shot it to save him. However, Alfie was bitten on the wrist while climbing and, with no other choice, the group had to kill him along with the zombie. Standing atop the vehicle, they rained down bullets, suppressing the horde until every last zombie had been eliminated. As dawn broke, Jack stared at Alfie's body, his heart heavy with sorrow. Archer stepped forward to take command. With their ammo running dangerously low, Lewis suggested they stay on the car roof and wait for rescue, but Nevins told them that the area had already been sealed off, and it wouldn't be long before the entire island was completely destroyed. Their only chance of survival was to escape before the nuke hit. Nevins pulled out a map, explaining that they could cut through the fence and the abandoned town to reach the relay station. There, a tunnel led straight to the docks, but just as the group was about to enter the forest, Archer sensed something was wrong and called for everyone to stop. The next second, Nevins recognized the person as his colleague, but there was no time to grieve. Soon, the group reached the fence, but suddenly, a large number of zombies appeared behind them. Archer ordered the others to go ahead while he covered them, but as Melanie attempted to cross, a zombie suddenly lunged from inside a car, grabbing her by the throat. Sadie reacted instantly, taking it down just in time. Just like that, they successfully crossed the fence, but they hadn't expected zombies to be lurking inside. Nevins was bitten on the neck by a zombie before he could react. Melanie wanted to say something to comfort him, but before she could, Lewis decisively pulled the trigger, ending Nevins' life. Melanie was stunned, but there was no time to dwell on it. The danger hadn't passed, they had to keep moving. On the way, Lewis noticed Melanie's dissatisfaction and tried to explain himself, but she accused him of being too ruthless. In the end, Archer stepped in to defend Lewis. Before long, they arrived at the relay station, but just as they were about to enter, Archer turned to Sadie and demanded the truth. Either she explained everything, or they would leave her behind to fend for herself. Cornered, Sadie finally admitted that she hadn't planted a virus in the control center. She admitted to being a member of a zombie rights activist group and said she had only copied files from the resort's main system to expose its dangers and unethical practices. But she had no idea the USB they gave her carried a hidden virus, one that triggered the entire disaster. Though the group resented Sadie, they didn't abandon her. As they moved through an abandoned building, eerie growls echoed through the air. They quickly found a hiding spot. Peering through the window, they spotted a massive horde of zombies closing in. Luckily, the undead hadn't noticed them, but as they made their way through a passage, Sadie and Jack, who were at the back of the group, saw zombies emerging from the corridor. With no other choice, they broke off from the main group, heading in another direction to meet up later. Unfortunately, midway through, they were spotted by the zombies. Forced to flee, they rushed upstairs. Just as they were passing through a doorway, the chained zombie beside them suddenly lunged at Jack. Panicked, they bolted from the building. At that moment, Sadie suddenly realized she had been bitten by a zombie, and despair washed over her. Soon, Jack led the zombie horde straight to Lewis and the others. Archer was the first to step behind the barricade, rifle at the ready. Once the rest of the group passed through, Melanie quickly locked the iron gate, narrowly escaping disaster. Later, the group learned from Jack that Sadie had tragically died. Swallowing their grief, the group pressed on, following the underground tunnel. They arrived safely at the control center. Inside, the darkness was overwhelming. Weapons drawn, they moved with caution. Then, Melanie spotted something on the ground: spent shell casings. Suddenly, they realized the area was filled with iron cages, from which the growls of zombies echoed, terrifying everyone and making them hurry to escape. Before long, they entered a corridor. Without warning, the walls glowed an ominous red, and the temperature began rising rapidly. Archer used his jacket to shove open the iron door, allowing them to escape just in time. But just as they let their guard down, a zombie dropped from above, biting into Jack. Melanie rushed to check his wound, but Archer pushed her aside. Without hesitation, he put a bullet in Jack's head. The group entered the next room, only then realizing it was a refugee detention center. It was then that they finally understood where the endless supply of zombies had been coming from. The truth was horrifying. The original outbreak hadn't left enough zombies to sustain the resort's operations. So, to keep the business running, Valerie had been trafficking refugees and illegal immigrants, infecting them with the virus. Then, using the overheated corridor from before, She accelerated their decay, making them indistinguishable from the original zombies. Zombies had no human rights. This meant that Valerie's scheme would never be exposed. At this moment, Melanie also recognized a little girl she had met at the airport, now turned into a zombie. Before they could process the horror, more zombies swarmed toward them. Archer fired, mowing them down, before leading the others in a frantic escape. At the exit, Archer threw his weight against the door, struggling to hold it shut. Melanie came over to help. Just as Melanie called for Lewis to assist, he abandoned Archer and Melanie, grabbing a chain and escaping alone. At this moment, Melanie was utterly disappointed. Archer told Melanie to go ahead, claiming he had a way to escape, but when Melanie made it out, she realized Archer had lied to her. Archer, after making Melanie promise to reveal the truth to the world, pulled open the doors and rushed into the horde of zombies. Melanie, devastated, immediately ran through the corridor and made her way to the control room. She picked up a gun from a dead guard and then entered the break room, only to unexpectedly run into Lewis. Lewis quickly apologized before revealing a wound on his arm. He had been bitten by zombies after his attempted escape. Seeing this, Melanie raised her gun at Lewis but couldn't bring herself to pull the trigger, so she handed the gun to Lewis, letting him make his own decision. At that moment, the zombie horde smashed against the doors, breaking into the facility. Melanie quickly grabbed another gun and ran into the next room, where she unexpectedly encountered Valerie. Valerie told her there was a space beneath the terminal that would allow them to crawl toward the escape hatch, but it was already surrounded by zombies. With only 5 minutes left before the Sulfur Protocol was activated, they had to find a way to distract the horde. But instead of cooperating, Melanie furiously accused Valerie of being a monster who sacrificed innocent lives for wealth. Realizing her crimes had been exposed, Valerie lunged at Melanie, trying to seize the gun from her hands, and the two erupted into a struggle. The noise drew the zombies, who stormed in the very next second, instantly overwhelming Valerie. Melanie seized the chance to escape, with endless waves of zombies chasing closely behind her. Just then, fighter jets appeared in the sky, dropping powerful explosives onto the island. Melanie took a leap and plunged into the ocean as the entire island was engulfed in flames behind her. After being rescued, Melanie exposed the full truth, and the infamous zombie island was finally shut down for good.